In heraldry, a charge is any emblem or device occupying the field of an escutcheon. This may be a geometric design or a symbolic representation of a person, animal, plant, object, or other device. In French blazon, the ordinaries are called pièces while other charges are called meubles. The term charge can also be used as a verb. For example, if an escutcheon depicts 3 lions, then it is said to be charged with 3 lions. Similarly, a crest or even a charge itself may be charged, such as a pair of eagle wings charged with trefoils. It is important to distinguish between the ordinaries and divisions of the field, as these typically follow similar patterns, such as a shield divided per chevron, as distinct from being charged with a chevron. While thousands of objects found in nature, mythology or technology have appeared in armory, there are several charges which have contributed to the distinctive flavor of heraldic design. Only these and a few other notable charges are discussed in this article, but a more exhaustive list will be found at List of heraldic charges. In addition to being shown in the regular way, charges may be umbrated, and are rather irregularly sometimes stated to be in silhouette, or are, more ambiguously, confusingly and unhelpfully, blazoned as stylized or simplified. Ordinaries and subordinaries. Some heraldic writers distinguish, albeit arbitrarily, between honorable ordinaries and subordinaries, while some authors hold that only 9 charges are honorable or ordinaries. Exactly which ones fit into this category is a subject of constant disagreement. The remainder are often termed subordinaries, and narrower, smaller versions of the ordinaries are called diminutives, while the term or ordinaries is generally recognized. So much dispute may be found among sources regarding which are honorable and which are relegated to the category of subordinaries that indeed one of the leading authors in the field, Arthur Charles Fox Davies, wrote at length on what he calls the utter absurdity of the necessity for any classification at all, stating that the ordinaries and subordinaries are, in his mind, no more than first charges. Quote, apparently ceding the point for the moment, Fox Davies lists the generally agreed upon honorable ordinaries as the bend, fess, pale, pile, chevron, crossed saltire and chief. Woodcock shed some light on the matter, stating that earlier writers such as Lee, Home and Gilliam proposed that honorable ordinaries should occupy 1/3 of the field, while later writers such as Edmondson favored 1/5, on the grounds that a bend, pale, or chevron occupying 1/3 of the field makes the coat look clumsy and disagreeable. Woodcock goes so far as to enumerate the ordinaries thus: the first honorable ordinary is the crossed, the second is the chief, the third is the pale, the fourth is the bend, the fifth is the fess, the sixth is the escutcheon, the seventh is the chevron, the eighth is the saltire, and the ninth is the bar, while stating that some writers prefer the bordure as the 9th ordinary. Volborth, having decidedly less to say on the matter, agrees that the classifications are arbitrary and the subject of disagreement, and lists the definite or ordinaries as the chief, pale, bend, fess, chevron, cross and saltire. Bootle lists the chief, pale, bend, sinister, fess, bar, crossed saltire and chevron as the honorable ordinaries. Thus, the chief, bend, pale, fess, chevron, cross and saltire appear to be the undisputed ordinaries, while authors disagree over the status of the pile, bar, escutcheon, bordure and others. Honorable ordinaries. Several different figures are recognized as honorable ordinaries, each normally occupying about 1/5 to 1/3 of the field. As discussed above, much disagreement exists among authors regarding which ordinary charges are honorable, so only those generally agreed to be honorable ordinaries will be discussed here, while the remainder of ordinary charges will be discussed in the following section. The chief is the upper portion of the field. The bend runs from the upper left to the lower right, as seen by the viewer. The bend sinister runs from the upper right to the lower left, as The pale, a vertical stripe in the center of the field. The fess is a broad horizontal stripe across the center of the field. The chevron is a construction shaped like an inverted letter V. The cross is a geometric construction of two perpendicular lines of bands. It has hundreds of variants, most of which are common charges rather than ordinaries. Some of these will be discussed below. The saltire is a diagonal cross, often called St. Andrew's cross. Most of the ordinaries have corresponding diminutives, narrower versions, most often mentioned when two or more appear in parallel: bendlets, pallets, bars, chevronels. Other ordinaries in addition to those mentioned in the above section. Other ordinaries exist. Some of these are variously called honorable ordinaries by different authors, while others of these are often called subordinaries. The pile is shaped like the letter Y. The pile is a wedge issuing from the top of the field and tapering to a point near the bottom. Its length and width vary widely. Piles may occur in any orientation, e.g., pile reversed, pile bendwise, and so on. The quarter is a rectangle occupying the top left quarter of the field, as seen by the viewer. The canton is a square occupying the left third of the chief. The bordure is a border touching the edge of the field. The orly may be considered an inner bordure, a reasonably wide band away from the edge of the shield. It is always shown following the shape of the shield, without touching the edges. The treasure is a narrower version of the orly, rarely seen except in the double treasure flory and counterflory, an element of the royal coat of arms of Scotland and of many other Scots coats. The fret originally consisted of 3 bendlets interlaced with 3 bendlets sinister. Other depictions form the outer bendlets into a mascle, through which the 2 remaining bendlets are woven. This has also been called a Harrington knot, as in the arms of Harrington. Flanches of flasks are regions on the sides of the field, bounded by a pair of circular arcs whose centers are beyond the sides of the shield. A label is a horizontal strap with a number of pendants suspended from it. The default is 3, but any number may be specified. The label is nearly always a mark of cadency in British and French heraldry, but is occasionally found as a regular charge in early armory and even in the 20th century. It is sometimes called a file, as in the counting arms of Belfile, a label with a bell hanging from each point. There are some examples in which the strap is omitted, the points issuing from the top of the shield. The gyron is a right triangle occupying the lower half of the first quarter. Its edges follow per bend and per fess from the dexter side to the center of the field. A gyron sinister, much rarer, is a similar figure in the sinister chief. Gyrons are sometimes blazoned to be shown in other positions, as in the sun in his splendor. Along with indexter base, a 6th gyron voided. Common charges, so-called mobile charges, are not tied to the size and shape of the shield, and so may be placed in any part of the field, although whenever a charge appears alone, it is placed with sufficient position and size to occupy the entire field. Common mobile charges include human figures, human parts, animals, animal parts, mythical creatures, plants and floral designs, inanimate objects, and other devices. The heraldic animals need not exactly resemble the actual creatures. A number of geometric charges are sometimes listed among the subordinaries, but as the form is not related to the shape of the shield, indeed they may appear independent of the shield, they are more usefully considered here. These include the escutcheon or escutcheon, lozenge, fusel, mascle, raster, billet, roundel, fountain, and annulet. The escutcheon is a small shield. If borne singly in the center of the main shield, it is sometimes called an escutcheon, and is usually employed to combine multiple coats. It is customarily the same shape as the shield it is on, though shields of specific shapes are rarely specified in the blazon. The lozenge is a rhombus generally resembling the diamonds of playing cards. A more acute lozenge is called the fusel. A lozenge voided is a mascle, a lozenge pierced is a rostra. The billet is a rectangle, usually at least twice as tall as it is wide. It may represent a block of wood or a sheet of paper. Billets appear in the shield of the House of Nassau, which was modified to become that of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The roundel is a solid circle, frequently of gold. A fountain is depicted as a roundel barry wavy argent and azure. An amulet is a roundel voided. Several other simple charges occur with comparable frequency. These include the mullet, a star, crescent and cross. The mullet is a star of straight rays, and may have originated as a representation of the roll or revel of a spur. Mullets frequently appear pierced. An unpierced mullet is sometimes called a star in Scottish heraldry, and stars also appear in English and continental heraldry under that name. The spur revel is also found in Scottish heraldry. A star with wavy rays is called an étoile. The crescent, a symbol of the moon, normally appears with its horns upward. If its horns are to Dexa, it represents a waxing moon, and with horns to Sinister it represents a waning moon. One of the most frequently found charges in heraldry, if not the most, is the cross, which has developed into, some say, 400 varieties. When the cross does not reach the edges of the field, it becomes a mobile charge. The plain Greek cross and Latin cross are sometimes seen, but more often the tip of each limb is developed into some ornamental shape. The most commonly found crosses in heraldry include the cross Bottoni, the cross Flori, the cross Merlin, the cross Potent, the cross Pateaformea, the cross Patence, and the cross Crosslet. In English heraldry, the crescent, mullet, martlet, annulet, fleur de lis and rose may be added to a shield to distinguish cadet branches of a family from the senior line. It does not follow, however, that a shield containing such a charge necessarily belongs to a cadet branch. All of these charges occur frequently in basic coats of arms. Human-like figures, humans, deities, angels and demons occur more often as crests and supporters than on the shield. When humans do appear on the shield, they almost always appear affronte, rather than toward the left like beasts. The largest group of human charges consists of saints, often as the patron of a town. Knights, bishops, monks and nuns, kings and queens also occur frequently. There are rare occurrences of a child, both the head and entire body. A famous example is the child swallowed by a dragon in the arms of Visconti Dukes of Milan. Greco-Roman mythological figures typically appear in an allegorical or canting role. Angels very frequently appear, but angelic beings of higher rank, such as cherubim and seraphim, are extremely rare. An archangel appears in the arms of Archangels. The devil or a demon is occasionally seen, being defeated by the archangel St. Michael, though the taboo is not invariably respected. British heraldry in particular, and to a greater or lesser extent the heraldry of other countries, frowns on depictions of God or Christ, though an exception may be in the not uncommon continental depictions of Madonna and Child, including the Black Madonna in the arms of Maria Bistrica, Croatia. Moors, or more frequently the heads, often crowned, appear with some frequency in medieval European heraldry. The term ascribed to them in Anglo-Norman is Moor, though they are also sometimes called Moor, Black Moor, Negro or occasionally Savage. Moors appear in European heraldry from at least as early as the 13th century, and some have been attested as early as the 11th century in Italy, where they have persisted in the local heraldry and vexillology well into modern times in Corsica and Sardinia. Armages bearing Moors or Moors' heads may have adopted them for any of several reasons, to include symbolizing military victories in the Crusades, as a pun on the bearer's name in the counting arms of Moors, Negri, Saraceni, etc. or in the case of Frederick II, possibly to demonstrate the reach of his empire. Even the arms of Pope Benedict XVI feature a Moor's head, crowned and collared red. Nevertheless, the use of Moors as a heraldic symbol has been deprecated in modern North America, where racial stereotypes have been influenced by a history of transatlantic slave trade and racial segregation, and applicants to the College of Arms of the Society for Creative Anachronism are urged to use them delicately to avoid creating offensive images. Human parts of human bodies occur more often than the whole, particularly heads, hearts, hands, torso and armored limbs. A famous heraldic hand is the Red Hand of Ulster, alluding to an incident in the legendary Milesian invasion. Hands also appear in the coat of arms of Antwerp. Ribs occur in Iberian armory, accounting for the Portuguese family da Costa. According to Woodward and Amp Burnett, the Counts Colleoni of Milan bear arms blazoned, for pale argent and gules. 3 hearts reversed counterchanged, but in less delicate times these were read as canting arms showing 3 pairs of testicles. The community of Kolb in Hesse has a coat of arms with a similar charge. Animals, especially lions and eagles, feature prominently as heraldic charges. Some differences may be observed between an animal's natural form and the conventional attitudes into which heraldic animals are contorted. Additionally, various parts of an animal may be differently colored, each with its own terminology. Most animals are broadly classified, according to the natural form, into beasts, birds, sea creatures and others, and the attitudes that apply to them may be grouped accordingly. Beasts, particularly lions, most often appear in the rampant position, while birds, particularly the eagle, most often appear displayed. While the lion, regarded as the king of beasts, is by far the most frequently occurring beast in heraldry, the eagle, equally regarded as the king of birds, is overwhelmingly the most frequently occurring bird, and the rivalry between these two is often noted to parallel with the political rivalry between the powers they came to represent in medieval Europe. Neubecker notes that, in the heroic poem by Heinrich von Weldeke based on the story of Aeneas, the bearer of the arms of a lion is set against the bearer of the arms of an eagle. If one takes the latter to be the historical and geographical forerunner of the Holy Roman Emperor, then the bearer of the lion represents the unruly feudal lords, to whom the emperor had to make more and more concessions, particularly to the powerful Duke of Bavaria and Saxony, Henry the Lion of the House of Welf. The beast most often portrayed in heraldry is the lion. When posed passant guardant, he is called the leopard in French blazon. Other beasts frequently seen include the wolf, bear or horse, bull or ox, and stagger hart. The tiger is a fanciful beast with a wolf-like body, a mane and a pointed snout. Dogs of various types, and occasionally of specific breeds, occur more often as crests as supporters than as charges. According to Neubecker, heraldry in the Middle Ages generally distinguished only between pointers, hounds and whippets, when any distinction was made. The unicorn resembles a horse with a single horn, but its hooves are usually cloven like those of a deer. The griffin combines the head, chest, wings and forelegs of the eagle with the hindquarters and legs of a lion. The male griffin lacks wings and his body is scattered with spikes. The bird most frequently found in armory is, by far, the eagle. Eagles in heraldry are predominantly presented with 1 or 2 heads, though triple-headed eagles are not unknown, and one eagle appearing in the Codex Manus curiously has its wing bones fashioned into additional heads. Eagles and the wings also feature prominently as crests. Eagles most frequently appear full-bodied, with 1 head, in numerous positions including displayed, state and passant and rising. The demi-eagle, which is shown only from the waist up, occurs less frequently. Double-headed eagles almost always appear displayed, as a result of being the dominant charge on the imperial Byzantine, Holy Roman, Austrian and Russian coats of arms. The double eagle gained enduring notoriety throughout the Western world. Among the present-day nations with an eagle charge on their coat of arms are Albania, Austria, Germany, Montenegro, Poland, Russia and Serbia. Additionally, the double-headed eagle of Lagash is used as an emblem by the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. There are many meanings attached to this symbol, and it was introduced in France in the early 1760s as the emblem of the Knight Kadosh degree. The martlet, a stylized swallow without feet, is a mark of cadency in English heraldry, but also appears as a simple charge in undifferenced arms. The pelican is notable as frequently occurring in a peculiar attitude described as in her piety. This symbol carries a particular religious meaning, and became so popular in heraldry that pelicans rarely exist in heraldry in any other position. Distinction is however observed between the pelican vulning herself and in her piety. The swan is also often seen, and the peacock in heraldry is described as being in its pride. Other birds occur less frequently. The category of sea creatures may be seen to include various fish, a highly stylized dolphin, and various fanciful creatures, sea monsters, which are shown as half fish and half beast, as well as mermaids and the like. The sea lion and seahorse, for example, do not appear as natural sea lions and seahorses, but rather as half lion, half fish and half horse, half fish, respectively. Fish of various species often appear in canting arms, e.g., pike, also called luce for pica lucy, dolphin for the Dauphin de Viennois. The escallop became popular as a token of pilgrimage to the shrine of Santiago de Compostela. The sea lion and seahorse, like the mermaid, combine the four parts of a mammal with the tail of a fish, and a dorsal fin in place of the mane. The sea dog and sea wolf are quadrupeds but with scales, webbed feet, and often a flat tail resembling that of the beaver. Reptiles and invertebrates occurring in heraldry include serpents, lizards, salamanders and others, but the most frequently occurring of these are various forms of dragons. The dragon, thus termed, is a large monstrous reptile with often a forked or barbed tongue, membraned wings like a bat's, and 4 legs. The wyvern and lindworm are dragons with only 2 legs. The salamander is typically shown as a simple lizard surrounded by flames. Also notably occurring is the bee. Animal parts. Animals' heads are also very frequent charges, as of the poorer leg of the lion, the wing of the eagle, and the antlers of the stag. Sometimes only the top half of a beast is shown. For example, the demi-lion is among the most common forms occurring in heraldic crests. Heads may appear cabossed, with the head cleanly separated from the neck so that only the face shows, couped, with the neck cleanly separated from the body so that the whole head and neck are present, or erased, with the neck showing a ragged edge as if forcibly torn from the body, while cabossed heads are shown facing forward. Heads that are couped or erased face dexter unless otherwise specified for differencing. Heads of horned beasts are often shown cabossed to display the horns, but instances can be found in any of these circumstances. A lion's head cabossed is called simply a face, and a fox's head cabossed, a mask. Attitude of animals. The attitude, or position, of the creature's body is usually explicitly stated in English blazon. When such description is omitted, the lion can be assumed to be rampant, a leopard a herbivore pastorland. By default, the charge faces dexter. This would be forward on a shield worn on the left arm. In German armory, animate charges in the dexter half of a composite display are usually turned to face the center. An animal towards sinister contourni is turned toward the right of the shield, the sinister. An animal affronte full-faced faces the viewer. An animal guardant faces dexter with its head turned to face the viewer. An animal regardant faces dexter with its head turned towards sinister, as if looking over its shoulder. Certain features of an animal are often of a contrasting tincture. The charge is then said to be armed, langed, vile, nay, episled, attired, unguled, crined of a specified tincture. Many attitudes have developed from the herald's imagination and ever-increasing need for differentiation, but only the principal attitudes found in heraldry need be discussed here. These, in the case of beasts, include the erect positions, the seated positions, and the prone positions. In the case of birds, these include the displayed positions, the flying positions, and the resting positions. Additionally, birds are frequently described by the position of the wings. A few other attitudes warrant discussion, including those particular to fish, serpents, griffins, and dragons. The principal attitude of beasts is rampant. Beasts also frequently appear walking, passant, or, in the case of stags and the occasional unicorn, trippant, and may appear stationed, salient, springing, segent, couchant, lodged, or occasionally dormant. The principal attitude of birds, namely the eagle, is displayed. Birds also appear rising, arousant, volant, stationed, close, and waterfowl may appear niant, while cranes may appear vigilant. Fish often appear niant or urinant, but may also appear adhorsed. Serpents may appear glissant and loud. Griffins and quadrupedal dragons constantly appear sagrant and, together with lions, may appear combatant. Plants are extremely common in heraldry and figure among the earliest charges. The turnip, for instance, makes an early appearance, as does wheat. Trees also appear in heraldry. The most frequent tree by far is the oak, followed by the pine. Apples and bunches of grapes occur very frequently, other fruits less so. When the fruit is mentioned as to indicate a different tincture, the tree is said to be fructed of the tincture. If a tree is eradicated, it is shown as if it has been ripped up from the ground, the roots being exposed. A raised is rarely used for a similar treatment. In Portuguese heraldry, but rarely in other countries, trees are sometimes found decorticated. The most famous heraldic flower is the fleur de lis, which is often stated to be a stylized lily, though despite the name there is considerable debate on this. The natural lily, somewhat stylized, also occurs, as in the arms of Eton College. The rose is perhaps even more widely seen in English heraldry than the fleur de lis. Its heraldic form is derived from the wild type with only 5 petals, and it is often barbed and seeded in contrasting tinctures. The thistle frequently appears as a symbol of Scotland. The trefoil, quatrefoil and cinquefoil are abstract forms resembling flowers or leaves. The trefoil is always shown slipped, unless blazoned otherwise. The cinquefoil is sometimes blazoned phrased, most notably when canting for Fraser. The trillium flower occurs occasionally in a Canadian context, and the protea flower constantly appears in South Africa, since it is the national flower symbol. Wheat constantly occurs in the form of garbs, or sheaves, and in fields, though less often as ears, which are shown unwhiskered. Ears of rye are depicted exactly as wheat, except the ears droop down and are often whiskered. Barley, cannabis, maize, and oats also occur. The garb in the arms of Gustav Vasa are not a wheat sheaf, although pictured in that way during the 16th to 19th century. This Vasa wears some kind of bundle but of unknown sort.